What's up, you guys? Jaden here with the Moonlight Craftsman channel. On this video, we are going to take a rough sawn piece of hardwood and we are going to prepare it using the jointer and planer to be able to use in our next woodworking project. Coming up. So what I have here is a piece of black walnut. I got it here locally from a guy about 30 minutes away from here. But why would you want to use rough sawn lumber instead of just going to the big box store and buying that stuff? And there's a few different reasons. Number one is it's cheaper. And number two is that sometimes at the big box stores, you know, you're going to find cups and in the wood, and so they're not going to be completely flat. You know, they were flat when they left the manufacturer, but you know, due to humidity and everything, when they reach your shop, you know, they're not completely flat. And the third reason is to get the precise thickness that you want for your project. And you know, our eyes are pretty good at spotting, you know, dimensions slightly, you know, larger than 3/4 or slightly smaller than 3/4 inch. And so that gives it a more handmade look than, you know, say the standard 3/4 inch that you're gonna, 3/4 or 1/2 inch that you're going to buy at the big box store. So the first step to preparing this piece of wood is to go over here to the jointer. So I'm here at the jointer, and what the jointer is going to do is make your board flat. You're going to push it over a cutter right here, which this is a helical blade here. Typically this is a straight blade, but this here has carbide inserts, which does a little bit better with cutting irregular grains and whatnot. If you do have straight blades, or even with this, you're going to want the grain of the board as you're pushing it in. You're wanting the grain, if you look at it from the side, to be going in an uphill direction. And the blade being on the bottom, that means it's in a downhill direction in relation to the blade. So when we go over to the planer later, then it'll be reversed because the blades are on top. So first, a little bit about the jointer is it works by having an in-feed bed and an out-feed bed. So these two beds are always parallel to one another. You lower the in-feed table and it hits the blades, and when it comes across the blades, it's sitting flat on the out-feed bed. And that is how it flattens it. You have a fence here, so you're able to get your second face, which will show here. You'll do the face first and then put the flat edge against the fence, and then you'll be able to get an accurate 90-degree face, flat face on the edge. The fence can rotate to different angles if you're wanting to use it for an application like that. Most people would just use the table saw for something like that. Also, as well, you can move this fence all the way out here and put a rabbet on the board. So same thing, most people would use a table saw for that, but you can get a lot wider rabbet on here than you would be able to with a dado set on the table saw, where you'd have to make multiple passes with the table saw. So that kind of brings me to where you adjust the in-feed table, which is down here, and it has some different depth of cuts options here, and you really never want to go more than an 1/8 inch. So why does it have all this? Why does it go all the way to 1/2 inch? And the reason for that is what I just talked about, is the rabbet. So if you're putting a rabbet on here, you might do a full 1/8 inch cut. First, you wouldn't go all the way to 1/2 inch, but then you would incrementally be able to raise that to or lower the bed, increase the depth of your rabbet to 1/2 inch in 1/8 inch increments. So I don't really see any reason to go more than a 32nd at a time with this, and I think that that's about all, and we'll go ahead and run this board through. Now I'm going to check to see how it did with a straight edge. And it is pretty flat. I can see just a slight hair in the middle. I might run it through one more time and not put a whole lot of pressure there on the middle and see if I can get that out of there. So I ran it through one more time and still has a slight little gap in the middle there. Probably just some tension in the wood there that's making it release a little bit after I run it through here. Flipping it over and putting it on the bed, I mean, just a slight pressure pushes it down. So I'm gonna take it over to the planer. The rolls on the planer will push it down, and you know, I'm not sure exactly what I'll use this board for, but I don't want to take any more off than I have to, and it doesn't take very much pressure at all to push that down flat. So I won't worry about it at this point. So now that we've got the one side flat, we can turn it on edge and run it through like this to square up our one edge. So now we have one flat face, and we have at exactly 90 degrees another flat edge. So now we move over to the jointer, or to the planer, excuse me. On the jointer, the blade is on the same side as the reference side. So we're referencing off the same side that we're cutting on. So if we were just flip this board over and joint the other side, the two faces wouldn't be parallel to each other. So the planer, it references off of the opposite side. So we'll bring it down to a uniform thickness by running it through the planer, where it'll reference off the bottom and cut off the top. Then after we run it through the planer, then we'll have a uniform thickness across the whole board, and then we'll have the one square edge. And at that point, then you'll be able to use the table saw to reference off the square edge and cut another parallel line, rip a parallel cut for whatever width you would like this board. So I'm at the planer now. This is a DeWalt model DW 735, pretty popular planer, economically priced. So a lot of people have this planer. I have upgraded it to with the Scheelix helical head, so it does have the same carbide type cutter heads or cutter blades as that jointer over there, which again does, you know, cuts better, going different grain directions and irregular grain patterns, it seems to do not a problem. Yeah, one thing when you do cut your board before you're running it through here, you do want to add another 3 inches or so on each side of the final measurement of the piece that you want to do. Sometimes you'll get what's called snipe on both the joiner and the planer, where it takes off a little bit more on the ends, on the leading edge and on the when it leaves. But I haven't found that these helical heads do that very much at all, so I'm pretty pleased with the helical types opposed to the straight blades. And if one of them gets nicked, maybe there is a nail or something in there, you can just replace, or actually even turn these helical inserts, carbide inserts, instead of having to either shift the one planer blade or have to replace it. So I think that's a good upgrade if you can do it. So onto the planer, it has a few adjustments here. Over here on this side, you can adjust the thickness here, and 1 revolution on this wheel is a 1/16 of an inch, so a quarter is a 64th. Over here on this side, it has a stop, so we're down pretty low right now, but if I raise it up, I could set a stop for, say, 1/2 inch, which is actually what it's on right now. Let me get my tape measure. Yeah, it looks like this board's going to be a little less than 3/4 anyway, so but you could set it to 3/4 or whatever over there, and then that just makes it to where you won't be able to drop the machine past that distance. So just kind of a safeguard to protect your piece. Now I'm just going to run this one through. I can see this side's thicker over here than this, so I'm going to set it to where it just barely touches on the thicker side and run it through, and then we'll keep moving down in 32nd to 64th increments until we get a clean surface on this side. Then it also has a speed over here where it says finishing or roughing. It's just it just controls how fast the rollers that feed the board through. You have feed rollers on the front and the back that push the board through. So for the finishing, it just moves the board slower through the machine. For the quicker, 96 cuts per inch instead of 179 cuts per inch, the only thing it does is just moves those feed rollers slower. So the cutting head is always running at the same speed. So I'm going to lower this down, and this first feed roller, when it hits, this indicator moves up here and it'll tell you about approximately how much it's getting ready to take off of the board. And then it also has measurements here that tells you how much is acceptable for this machine to cut off. So over here, 13 inches max 32nd, down to 3 inches wide board, a maximum of an 1/8 inch cut. So right here I got it set to where it's going to cut off about in between a fat 32nd, it looks like. So we have it surfaced on 3 sides now, and if we mic it out, we have a final thickness of just a hair over 0.75, it looks like. Well, excuse me, 0.66. So a little over 5/8. So I'll leave it as thick as I can right now, and whatever project I need, I can thickness it down more with the planer to the proper thickness. But that is how you use the joiner and the planer in conjunction to surface rough lumber. This was milled at rough sawn at 1 1/8 inches, so we're down to almost 5/8 now. So depending on how bad the board is, you might have to really take off a lot. So you want to take that into account on how thick the rough lumber is that you buy as well. So with that said, guys, I appreciate you for watching. We'll see you on the next one, and keep making stuff.